Algebra 1 students, welcome back. Here are your lesson 2.5 notes. This section deals with literal equations and formulas. We'll start with this. We're given some equations like you see on number 1 and number 2 that say solve each equation for y and then find the value of y for each x value. So we have to do this one piece at a time. First things first. If I want to solve number 1 for y, that's just another way of saying isolate y, that variable. To do that, let's subtract x from both sides. So y then would equal 18 minus x. We've completed the first portion of this. Now what we need to do is take it a step further and evaluate different x values. So when x equals -3, we would know that y would equal 18 minus, and instead of writing x, I'm going to plug in a -3. And 18 minus a -3, remember subtracting a negative is the same as adding a positive, so y then would be 21. For x equal to 2, same equation, y equals 18 minus, and this time our x value is 2. So y would have a value of 16. And the third one, when x is 5, we would know that y would be 18 minus, instead of writing x, we write 5. So y would have a value of 13. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Similar question. 2x equals 5y minus 7. If we're going to isolate the y term again, let's add 7 to each side. So 2x plus 7 equals 5y. Then I need to divide both sides by 5. And I'm going to just move the y to the other side and write it as y equals 2x plus 7 all divided by 5. Now I could break that fraction apart and do 2/5 x plus 7/5. For our purposes, I think it would be perhaps simpler just to work with it like you see here. Alright, so let's now use our three values. For x equals 0, we would have 2 times 0 plus 7 divided by 5. And I forgot to write y equals on there, so I'll just put it at the end. And when we evaluate, 2 times 0 is, of course, 0 plus 7. So 0 plus 7 over 5, which is just simply 7/5. Let's go to our next value, x equal to 2. Our equation would look like this: 2 times 2 plus 7, all divided by 5, which is 4 plus 7 over 5. So y then would be 11/5. And our last value for y that we'll use here is, for x, is that x equals 4. So we'll say that y then is 2 times 4 plus 7 divided by 5. 2 times 4 is 8. That gives us 15/5, which hopefully you recognize to be 3. Why don't you guys pause this video and work through this next one on your own. Okay, you can see I've worked through this problem now. Take a moment and compare your answers. You can see what I did to solve for y. First subtract 9x, then divide by negative 3, and you get the equation of y equals 3x minus 5. And then I showed you in red what I did to evaluate at negative 2, 2, and 6. All right, let's move ahead. First, a couple of definitions. A literal equation is an equation that involves two or more variables. Let's go ahead and fill that in on your notes as well. Similar to a literal equation is a formula. A formula is an equation that states a relationship between quantities. All right, so we're going to see examples of both formulas and literal equations and how to solve for certain pieces within those. So let's start with this one, number 4. You've seen this equation before, y equals mx plus b. What we're going to do here, though, is actually solve for x. So we almost have to pretend that y, m, and b are just numbers. Well, what would I do if these were numbers? Well, first thing I would do is get rid of b over here. I have to move that to get x by itself, so we will subtract. We'll just have y minus b equals m times x. And the last thing that I need to do to get to get x by itself is to move the m by division. So finally I'd have it here that x equals y minus b divided by m. And you can leave your answer just like that. Okay, this next one requires just a little more thought from us. 7x equals 3 times the quantity of x plus 2y. We'll start by distributing 3 times x and 3 times 2y. Remember, we're solving for x. I want to move all the x terms to one side, so I'm going to move those to the left. That seems to be the simpler choice in this scenario. So 4x equals 6y. Divide by 4. And 6/4 we would want to go ahead and simplify to be 3/2. So x is equal to 3/2 y. Why don't you go ahead and pause, work through number 6, again solve for x, and I'll show the worked out solution to you. Okay, you can see the worked out solution here. What I've used is called the cross products property, where we essentially just take x times r equals q times s. Now the key to the cross products property is you can only use it when we have that equal sign in between. Don't ever try to use the cross products property just to multiply fractions. It's only when we have an equal sign. All right, let's move ahead. All right, on number 7, we are asked to solve the equation PV equals nRT for the variable r. You can see r right there. The thing to consider is we have n times r times t. It's all multiplication here. I'm going to show you two options. Option 1, do this in one step. Divide by n, divide by t. N is gone, t is gone. We're left with r equals PV over NT. For some of you, trying to eliminate two variables at once might be a little bit strange. So I'm going to give you an alternate version here. I'll rewrite the original PV equals nRT. Let's do this one step at a time. So let's divide by n. The n is gone. So PV over n equals RT. At this point we have to divide by t, and this is the part that may seem a little bit strange to you, having a complex fraction over here. So really what we would have to do is consider this to be PV over N times 1 over T equals R. And again, we would get that R equals PV over NT. Now, that second method may be a little confusing because you're saying, well, Mr. Hale, where did this times 1 over T come from? The way I'm thinking about it is T is T over 1, so I'm dividing by a fraction, I'm reciprocating, and then multiplying. I really think that's the hardest of the three that we'll see here. So if you're struggling with that one, don't panic. Do what works for you and bring questions to class. All right, let's look at number 8. This time we're asked to solve for b. I want to get b by itself. So my first step is going to be, let's subtract ax from each side. So by is going to equal c minus ax. This is coming together nicely. Only one more thing for us to do actually would be to divide by y, and we would have it. B is equal to c minus ax divided by y. And that's where we'd leave it. That's our solution. All right. Last one, I want you guys to try this one on your own. Solve for v. So pause this video, come back, and then we'll talk about the solution. Welcome back. I hope that problem worked out well for you. You can see my solution here for v. I will tell you, though, that there is another way you could write this answer if you multiplied both numerator and denominator by -1 over -1. That'll get rid of all the negatives that we have going on here. And you know at Olathe South, we like to get rid of negativity, so we're going to do that here as well. And there's your solution to that one. All right, perhaps a little bit of a challenging section, one that may be somewhat unfamiliar to you, some new learning. Work hard on getting these notes filled out well, and then when you come to class, be ready to roll. Have a good day.